is Monday, January 23rd, 2017. I call to order this meeting of the Goose Creek CISD Board of Trustees. Before proceeding with tonight's agenda, I would like to remind everyone in attendance that this meeting is being recorded through video and audio technology. Also at this time, I ask that everyone silence or turn off all electronic devices. Ms. Woods, was this meeting properly posted?
Yes.
And do we have a quorum?
Yes.
Okay. As such, we will continue with number 2 on our agenda, opening exercises. Dr. Duarte.
President Richard, school board members, Mr. O'Brien, the opening exercises for the January 23rd, 2017 board meeting will be presented by students from Baytown Junior School. We will begin the opening ceremonies with the prayer led by Pete Poppy. Everyone please rise. The pledges will be led by Daniel Lucatero and Paris Howard.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to the Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible.
You may be seated. The students from Baytown Junior School will perform in their mariachi club, De Colores and La Raspa. Students representing the campus are Jaylene Alvarez, Jose Avalos, Diego de Avila, Damian Espinosa, Paris Howard, Daniel Lucatero, Yareli Rodriguez, Daniel Luna, Jaime Ornelas, Heriberto Sanchez, Fabian Sanchez, Melvin Valdez, Evan Kerr, and Raquel Trejos. The students are under the direction of Jeanette Shackelford and Principal Matt Bollinger.
Thank you, Ms. Shackelford. Thank you, young men and young ladies, for being here tonight. We have junior highs. They're not boys and girls anymore. And thank you to all the parents who might have come out tonight. If you'd stand up so we could recognize you for coming out tonight,
Parents,
supporting your children.
January is School Board Recognition Month, a great time to focus on the crucial role an elected Board of Trustees plays in our communities and schools. The theme of this year's School Appreciation Month is All-Star Team, which sums up the work you do as a team on behalf of our students throughout the year. You are extraordinary people who voluntarily tackle the enormous job of governing the school district. Your actions and decisions affect the present and future lives of our children. This truly is an all-star team. Our boardroom is brightened this evening by posters made by students on every campus who want to say thank you to our Board of Trustees for your service and support. Let's take a moment to give our students a round of applause for their heartfelt decorations in the boardroom tonight. Baytown Mayor Stephen Don Carlos would like to say a few words and read a proclamation in honor of School Board Appreciation Month.
I have got to jazz up council meetings. I mean, you guys have, I try to get our guys to sing. They're not good. They can't dance. They certainly can't play instruments. But I have a proclamation for y'all, and it's got the standard whereases and everything, and tries to describe in some detail what you guys do and ladies do. But what I really wanted, in lieu of reading it, what I would really like to do is just tell you on behalf of the city that we have such a profound appreciation of the very, very difficult job that you all do. Y'all literally do jobs that I'd be afraid to take on, ever. But it's a very, very difficult task, and every one of you has had to sacrifice a lot of time with your families and just away from your jobs and everything to do this job. And I, being a public official, I can very much appreciate the time that and the lack of thanks many times that you don't get for doing a very, very difficult job. I want you to know that we in the city consider you guys a partner. We are working with you even now. In fact, we have a meeting tomorrow with some developers coming to town that we want to educate about how outstanding this school district is. I have 3 sons, and I love to tell it. They've been to this school, went through this school district, got a top-flight education. All 3 breezed through college, some more than others, but all 3 of them got master's degrees, and I wouldn't trade for their education at this district. It is the finest education you can get, and you do that every day with a lot of students, and many of which are challenges, we all know. But again, thank you so much for what you do. We appreciate it. Your work does not go unnoticed at all, and we just appreciate y'all as a partner with us in making this city better every day. So again, thank you so much on behalf of the city.
Also with us tonight is District Director Derek Darnell, representing the Office of State Senator Sylvia Garcia, who could not be here with us this evening because of the busy legislative session, but who also wanted to honor our Board of Trustees with a proclamation. District Director Darnell brings a message from the Senator.
Hello, this is your State Senator Sylvia Garcia. Greetings from the Texas Capitol. As you may already know, January is School Board Recognition Month in Texas. It's a time to thank every school board member in our state for their service and unbelievable dedication to the children of Texas. Now, normally, I like to present a proclamation from the Texas Senate on this occasion, but because I'm in Austin for the legislative session, I recorded this video from the Capitol so I could make sure that every board member sitting in front of you knows how much I value their service. These board members are unpaid volunteers who have decided to take time out of their already busy lives to take on the immense challenges of running a school district. They serve out of a commitment to the principle that all children can be successful learners. They work tirelessly with parents, educators, and the community to create a solid foundation and vision for public schools. Ladies and gentlemen, these public officials have worked diligently to improve the lives of school children in the community and are truly deserving of recognition. Now, I will fight hard this legislative session to secure more funding for public schools in Texas, and will always focus on classrooms, not bathrooms. But I know that no matter what happens in Austin, there will always be exemplary leadership at the local level where things really happen, right here in Senate District 6. Thank you.
Representing Senator Garcia is Derek Darnell here tonight. We thank you with our colleagues. We could take another joint picture. Will do.
At your seat is a small gift that is symbolic of the amazing technology in place on Goose Creek CISD campuses. You have a Goose Creek CISD logo keychain made from a 3D printer by AutoCAD students at Robert E. Lee High School under the direction of Adam Trunkell. I'm not sure if he's here. No. You can also see the artistic talent of GCCISD students and staff. Your beautiful floral arrangements were made by students in the floral design class at Goose Creek Memorial High School under the direction of Cammie Johnston. Cammie, are you here? Would you stand to be recognized? And I am sure you enjoyed your dinner tonight, which was prepared by students in the Culinary Arts program under the direction of Tina Andrade. Tina, will you be recognized? Please wave. And with her, she has two of her very talented students. We have Karen Garcia and Mateo Ramirez. Guys, wave. In fact, the dessert they prepared for you was practice for them, because those are the recipes they will take to compete at Skills USA in a couple of weeks. Let's give them one more round of applause. We would like to express our gratitude to our Board of Trustees for the time you volunteered to our district. You are charged with making many decisions on behalf of our students and staff, and while they are not always easy decisions, you make them with the best interest of every student in GCCISD in mind.
These young people, if you don't mind, if
Sure,
we could go back
that's
up
fine.
for one more picture.
All right. I'm just asking, Ms. Jackson, do we have any students from the floral design class here, or any of our students from Lee? All right, well, please pass along our thanks and our appreciation and how proud we are of the effort. And I'm going to take the tag off and hand deliver it to my wife's school in the morning and say it's from me.
I'm going to send her the link to the meeting.
Additionally, Goose Creek CISD would like to honor our 16-17 Board of Trustees for their dedication and support of our students, staff, and administration. We thank the Board of Trustees for their accomplishments and continuous efforts on behalf of Goose Creek, and would like to place a book in each school in honor of our board members. Some of the examples of the books being placed include at Carver Elementary, The Day the Crayons Came Home. At Cedar Bayou Junior School, we have There Will Be Bears. And at Sterling High School, The Outsiders 50th Anniversary Exclusive Collector's Edition. Board members, you have a complete listing of books and schools in your packets. Next, we will be recognizing our Scholar Athlete Award, which is presented to athletes who are involved in varsity sports. These students demonstrate leadership and/or exemplary performance in team athletics and in the classroom, as well as participate in community service. Coach Mulvaney will be recognizing our January Scholar athletes.
Thank you, Dr. Duarte. President Richard, Board of Trustees, Mr. O'Brien, it is my privilege to give you actually 3 Scholar athletes, 2 for this month and 1 for last month. Our first Scholar athlete from Goose Creek Memorial High School, Sade Flavin. Sade, if you'll come on up. Sade is under the direction of Coach Roman Weezar and Principal Susan Jackson. Coach Weezar, come on, you can go right up there, get in the picture. Coach Weezar says Sade is so awesome that they had to bring every principal from Goose Creek Memorial tonight just to see her get this award. But anyway, yes. Sade is a senior, and she is ranked 4th out of 503 in her class. She is a 4-year varsity letterman in soccer and a 2-year team captain. She is also involved in orchestra, Key Club, Interact, National Honor Society, and College Forward. Coach Weezar said Sade epitomizes what it is to be a student athlete. She works very hard in the classroom and on the field. She is a model student. Her teammates respect her, and she is a perfect teammate. It is not surprising to see her catching up on homework or studying on the bus or in the stands at away games. Sade Flavin, soccer player, Goose Creek Memorial. Mom, if you'll please stand. I want to honor you. Give Mama a round of applause. You want to come on up in here and get in on the picture? Miss Jackson, you can too. And you can take the picture from there. You're good. And if you want one with Miss Jackson, she's rolling up. Thank you all, assistant principals, for being here as well. Appreciate your support. All right, our next January Scholar athlete from Robert E. Lee High School, also a soccer player, Jezreel Mata. Jezreel, come on up. Direction of Coach Jay Langlois and Principal Dr. Joseph Farnsworth. Jezreel, a senior, is in the top 10% of his class at Robert E. Lee. Jezreel is a 3-year varsity letterman, 2-time All-District, and senior captain, as well as 2016 Most Valuable Player. Coach Langlois states, Jezreel is an A student. He is a model student athlete in the classroom and on the field. He displays the highest level of academic integrity and sportsmanship. We are fortunate to have him as a leader on our squad. Jezreel Mata, soccer, Robert E. Lee. Thank you, Mr. Mata. And now our bonus. In December, we had a school district right down the road, I won't mention their names, but changed game dates on our basketball squad. So this young lady wasn't able to be honored at the last board meeting. So that young lady from Robert E. Lee High School, a basketball player by the name of Taya Bean. Taya, come on up. Taya is under the direction of Coach Raytasha Alexander and Principal Dr. Joseph Farnsworth. Taya is seniors in the top 10% of her class at Robert E. Lee. She's also a 4-year letter winner, and she was also the Robert E. Lee Homecoming Queen. Coach Terry Gray states, Taya exemplifies the model student athlete that we seek out. She is a leader both in the classroom and on the court. Taya Bean, Robert E. Lee High School girls basketball.
Okay, thank you very much.
And finally, on behalf of the athletic department, we appreciate your service. We appreciate each and every one of you. Thank you very much for all that you do for Goose Creek CISD.
Thank you, Coach.
Thank you, Coach Mulvaney. Next item on our agenda is number 4, citizens participation. Ms. Garcia, we have no one who has signed up tonight. We move now to the approval of minutes from the January 9th, 2017 regular board meeting. Is there any corrections anyone would like to make before we move on this?
Move for approval. Second.
We have a motion from Mr. Laredo, a second from Mr. Poppy to approve the minutes January 9th, 2017 as presented in our board packet. Any discussion? All in favor, please raise your right hand. Any opposed? Any abstaining? Okay. We have 6 in favor, 1 abstention. Item 6, discussion item, superintendent's report. Mr. O'Brien.
Yeah, at the request of the board, we have a superintendent's report, 2018-19 school start time consideration, presented to us this evening by Dr. Duarte and Mr. Walterscheid.
You're echoing.
I was thinking so. Yeah.
17, 18.
You can click right. Of course, I thought maybe I was just a rock star.
You didn't do your sound check.
Zach, can you check my mic? I don't want to hear my pulse rate.
Feedback. Ms. Ruminek, can you hear me? Dr. Ruminek?
Chief Torres, can you hear me? You can?
You're better. It's better.
Check, check. Thank you.
Good evening, Mr. O'Brien, school board members. We're asked to bring back a couple of scenarios tonight, so we'll just briefly go over what we went over last time. As we go through this, I'm going to explain a couple of terms, and it'll kind of make sense, but I want to reiterate what those terms mean. Our transportation system right now in our school system is based upon a 4-tier type system. So in other words, we have 4 distinct start times for our school district: high school, elementary A, elementary B, and our junior school. And the times range from 7:15 in the morning all the way to 8:50, as you see here on our current schedule, and let out time at 2:45 to 4:00. Again, this is our current schedule, and as we move forward, you'll start to see. Well, I'm going to have to switch places with you because I can't see that far. Sorry, guys. Each route represents one bus, but one bus will do many runs. And the determining factor on how efficient or how many buses we require is dependent on how many runs one bus can make per route. As you see in this first slide, again, we talked about this before. How many routes do we have? We have a total of 110 routes, ranging from 9 buses with 1 run all the way up to buses with 3 runs up in the 7 number. Average run time per campus, this will be one of the only slides you'll see this on. Currently, our high school is 38 minutes, start to finish. Elementary A, 39 minutes. Junior school, 38 minutes. And elementary B, 34 minutes. And this there is the number of runs at each level.
So this slide we went over last time really looked at what would be the benefits of the current schedule and what would be some challenges. And what we did was we presented this data to both our principal groups and our ILC to be able to get feedback from principals and teachers. And so they added a few items to this list. We talked about this is the most efficient transportation option that's provided. That our high school athletic, they wanted to include fine arts teams, do not miss instructional time due to early dismissal. They talked about high school students being home before their elementary siblings. They have multiple employment opportunities, specifically for our low SES population. They felt that with no change, there would be no disruption. And they talked about early start possibly aligned to workforce expectations for students entering the workforce from high school. They also discussed it does not support the early start for high school within some research. There is no time for after-school tutorials for junior school students because they get out so late. They talked about high school students at the bus stop very early in the morning, and that late start and dismissal for junior school students would be a negative with this.
As we started to look through this, again, we're going to go back through. We've got 5 different options. This is just a repeat of the same option that we gave you last time, so I'm going to quickly and briefly go through this. One thing we looked at was taking our high school and having them start late and flip-flopping them with the junior school to answer some of those questions about our elementary students. This schedule, although it's a little bit less efficient, it would add 15 routes above the current route table. It met much of the criteria as we start looking at it as far as our timing. The times are very, very similar: 32 minutes, 39 minutes, 37 minutes. And high school is a little bit later, 48 minutes, mainly because of the area that it has to cover. But it's very close. And this slide here kind of puts that into perspective. If we let out junior high first, how many of those buses can get to that high school or that elementary A release time, and how many of them can't, and therefore they must go to the elementary B or to the high school time? And you can see here that almost half of our buses will never make it to an elementary A let out in this scenario. Again, elementary A, how many of those elementary A buses can't make it to an elementary B and must go to onto a junior school or a high school after their elementary B release time? Elementary B, how many of them can make it to the high school release? Well, less than a third.
So again, we shared this information with both groups, and they added to the list we had provided previously. So some of the positives in regards to the research with a late high school start. They talked about junior school after-school tutorials, interventions, and enrichment would be offered, and that junior school would be home before the younger siblings, since the high school would not. We talked about the increased cost in the potential purchase of 15 buses, that there was decreased efficiency in the routes. We shared what the average cost to operate the routes would be, which would add $450,000 to the operational budget yearly, that the students' after-school employment could be affected by this change. High school students would not be available to watch siblings, and the concern over missed instructional time.
Option 3 was one that we looked at for junior high school, of course, to start first, high school to start second, elementary A, elementary B. Trying to keep with pretty much the same time schedule that we have now and still maintain a 4-tier system, since we can look at it and try and come up with the best scenario where we utilize the 4-tier system, as it's usually going to be the most efficient, as we find out in later slides. As we looked at it, it would add 26 routes to the fleet or to our daily duties. But go back. Did I do that? Previous. There we go. Junior high school runs up to 96 runs. As we start to look across there, fewer and fewer buses are able to run those 3-tier runs. More of them go to a 2-tier, so they can only hit 2 tiers instead of the 3 or even the 4. And that's where we lose our efficiency overall.
So again, feedback that we talked about that they provided was research supports the later start. High school and junior school students would all be home before elementary. They mentioned junior school teams would be on time to athletic contests, and the junior schools again could offer after-school enrichment and interventions. Some of the concerns would be the potential purchase of 26 buses, decreased efficiency. We're now looking at a yearly operating cost of $780,000. The later start time for elementary students would impact or could impact parents dropping off students, which would also increase the utilization of buses in the morning, and the extended time that we're starting to see on the bus route. So our students would be spending more time on buses.
One scenario was one that we kind of were thinking outside the box. Well, if we took elementary A and high school and we combined those 2 runs together and doubled it up with elementary B and junior high starting, so really going to a 2-tier scenario where 2 like groups, or 2 similar in size as far as how many buses it takes to facilitate, where we kind of split that in half. In our attempt, it didn't work out the way I'd wanted it to. It was rather shocking for me, but we would need additional 81 routes to accomplish that. And our goal was to start school no earlier than 7:45 and no later than 4:05, which is a little bit later, but about the same time in the afternoon, a let-out time. Quite a bit less efficient when we started looking at the daily operations of that.
So the feedback we received from the principals and the teachers, they talked about some of the positives, which would be the late start for high school students. They felt this was more equitable for campuses because we're looking at a 2-tier, and it's an earlier release for junior schools than what they currently have. Some of the concerns would have been potential purchase of 81 buses, decreased efficiency in routes. You're looking at an operating cost of $2.4 million a year. High school would be missing instructional time due to the extracurricular activities, and there would be a large difference between start times. which could make it challenging for campuses that share staff. So they would either have to finish before the other campus's school day or start after a campus has already started.
Could you explain that one just a little bit more thoroughly?
So if I have a teacher that teaches pre-K in the morning at one campus and they travel to another campus for the afternoon class,
Okay.
their day extends because they're either starting really early and finishing very late. We're going to lose a teacher at one end of the day.
One of the things we looked at when we were putting this scenario together was how can we take our buses and really double the use of them and flip them, but just didn't. Just too many square miles to cover with that many buses. So, option 5 mail schedule is just go to a straight 3-tier system. All the elementary students come in, high school students and junior high students, trying to get same parameters, 7:45 to 4:15. Challenges here are numerous, but one of the things that we did like about this particular, at least as far as transportation, is definitely a clear-cut 3-tier system. But again, it would add 45 routes. As we can see, 22% of us, or actually 63% of our routes would only be able to do 2 tiers at that type of scenario.
So again, the feedback we received was research supporting the late start for high school students. Older siblings would be home in the morning and in the afternoon. Elementary campuses have the same start time, and they'd have elementary tutorials would be offered in the afternoon. Some of the concerns is purchasing 45 additional buses, the decreased efficiency. It would add to the yearly operating cost $1.35 million. Older siblings would not be home prior to our elementary students, and it could impact after-school employment for high school students, and they just felt there were too many changes in parent schedules at this point.
This is kind of the rundown of all the 5 different scenarios. And if you start with number 1 option, 3.49 run, that's our current routes, and then from there it just it goes all the way from 3.49 down to 1.6 runs per bus. One of the questions that we got out of the ILC group was, what about our special population? Well, that's not figured into any of these figures. And the reason we can't do that, and it's difficult to do that to say the least, is because every student that we transport in our special population is kind of a one-off because it's led by their IEP, their educational plan. So we left those out of there because predicting the future on that population and those buses is very difficult. So we don't quite know what the impact would be on that until we actually cross that bridge, but I suspect it would be pretty simple.
So during our conversations with these 2 groups, we asked for them to share any additional considerations that they wanted us to reflect on. And so they mentioned, when we're already looking at a current driver shortage, that would be an additional drivers that we would need to hire. They talked about the teachers working across campuses and concern with times, that the ending times impact after-school tutorials. So even with our current option, that's something they want us to look at. They mentioned the 2-mile rule, maybe looking at that again. If we have fewer hours for our drivers when hiring more drivers, because we have more employment, that would impact or equate to a higher turnover rate. They talked about business owners potentially losing some of their high school employees. That they also wanted us to look at the high school research because they feel that some research does support early start times. And we do have one of our principals that went from an early start to a late start thinking that they would see a difference, and they did not experience that. So they did share that. They talked about possibly hiring more teachers rather than purchasing additional buses. They wanted the board to consider the operational costs, and they wanted to know if that would be an impact on teacher raises.
One of the things that we talked about with our drivers, I wish we didn't talk about it with our drivers, but we kind of came to the conclusion on the drivers. A lot of our drivers, or the majority of our drivers right now, are making about 35 hours a week. So whenever we go to a 2-tier system, or if we went to a 2-tier system with the majority of our buses, they would potentially lose a third of their time on greater turnover in those areas. So that was a huge consideration for us as a department.
So what we did was we went ahead and surveyed both of the groups, and we surveyed them two ways. We said, forget everything we talked about in regards to cost, and ideally, what would you like to see with the schedule? And then we asked, if you took cost into consideration, what would your options look like? And so what you're going to see is option 1, ideal. This is what they'd like to see. We had 16 select option 1, and then option 5 was the second most popular choice with 7 votes from the principals. When we look at ILC, you're looking at their top choice would have been option 1, and their second top choice would have been option 4. So little different from the perspective we had from the principals. Then we broke it down by each option. So we looked at 16 principals selected option 1 as their first choice, and 4 of the principals selected option 1 as their last choice. So we really want to look at, okay, well, where did the gamma fall? And you've got the second choice for option 1, you had 7 principals. When we look at ILC, same information, you're looking at first choice would have been 9 votes, while their last choice would have been 2. So kind of that favorability within that. We did the same thing for option 2. And you had first choice for option 2 was 1 principal, and you had 10, putting that as their last choice. And ILC, you're going to see on option 2, majority put that as their last choice. For option 3, again, you had 12 principals that put that as their 5th choice. And ILC, a little more of a variance when we look at option 3 in regards to where they place that. Go to option 4. You're going to see that was majority 3rd or 4th choice within their realm. And ILC, that's where you had more putting that into their first choice. And we knew that ILC had first and then 4th, option 1 and then option 4. And then you're looking at option 5. Majority had that as their 4th option, and then the next would have been that their first choice, and ILC had that as 2nd and 4th. So again, certainly wanted them to have a voice to the board as they start to have those discussions.
I didn't write it down. How many buses on options 2 and 3 would we need to purchase?
You have it where they're all up on the screen at once, Mr. Walsh?
The last slide, I don't think it has the number of buses, though. It has the times and the,
22.
there you go, we can do that from there. So I can, there we go. All right. So we currently have 110 currently, so 15 buses on option 2, and you said option
3.
Option 3. So
26.
Thank you.
You didn't, Mr. Walsh, you didn't do it where high schools would go in last. It'd be elementary, junior high, and high schools.
No, sir. Where high school was going last.
Right.
Elementary is first, then junior high, then high school.
And then high schools at the end.
We did that, but in a 3-tier.
In a 3-tier
just not in a
system.
4-tier.
In a 3-tier, not in a 4-tier system. Well, we were on that, and I believe that was option 4. Right there, option 5. And that was in trying to keep in that nobody starts before 7:45. If we back that number down a little bit, we could gain some and
No, but
probably
I mean,
be a little bit more efficient.
Flip-flop in the high school and the junior high.
Flip-flop in the high school and junior high, we did not on that option. Honestly, I don't know that it's going to matter that much on the total number. Our largest consumer, if you will, of buses is about junior high students, is our junior high tier, and trying to get those buses from an elementary over, it's probably going to make it a little bit less efficient because it takes more buses to do the junior high students than it does the high school, simply.
I think our point was we were trying to get the high school at the late start around the 8:30 or later mark, which was why we'd asked to see high school last with the elementary, then junior and high school. And that would probably impact your efficiency and number of buses, so.
But wouldn't that also impact your extracurricular activity in the evening? Because if they get out of school at 4:15.
Not if you, and you can make that argument, but I mean, I think Mr. Poppy handed out a huge novel today for us. But the research is there. And
Well, I know. I've
at
seen that research on about early, later start.
right,
for
if
kids.
you look at extracurriculars,
Yeah.
and even then, we have sports that could even do it in the morning.
Yeah.
That be the case.
Certainly could run the scenario. This was a scenario we were asked to run, but I could certainly run one for you. That's not
Well, I asked originally for high school at the end with the junior high in the middle.
On a 3 or 4 tier?
Both.
Both, okay.
certainly do that.
I see that as an option 6 and 7 that the board would like to see, Mr. Waltersheim.
Can I ask a question? On the elementary A and the elementary B, are the campuses determined what time they start based only on transportation?
Currently, that's the way it is right now, yes.
And how do we determine which ones start earlier and which ones start the later? Like how is that done?
I'm going to be real honest with you. I had nothing to do with determining the A and the B schools 7 years ago, or 6 years ago. That was a system that was in place. When we added new campuses, however, which we did, we looked at the surrounding schools. So, if, for instance, I'll give you Benuelos and Victoria Walker, if you will. Those buses are dual use. So, when they leave Victoria Walker, they go get the Benuelos students, and they run straight over to Benuelos, and then they do their junior high because they're very close proximity. So, what we don't want to do is have two like schools. What makes it difficult is when you have 2 A schools very close together because those buses can't then turn and go pick up the next group of students efficiently. So that's basically how we determined whether or not a school was going to be A or B when we added those 2 new schools. Same way with Clark.
Mr. Waltersheim, would it be possible to get a district map with A's and B's so that we can see? It could be a geographical thing.
It is. I mean, that's the way we determine it.
I'm wondering, for example, Bowie and De Zavala are close proximity elementary schools. Is one an A and one a B? Maybe we could backtrack and figure out what the powers that be 8 years ago when they went to the AB system were thinking. And so maybe you just look at a map with A's and B's on it. That might help to see.
I can create one.
You also got to look at the population back here.
Just a Google map with pin drops.
I can do our attendance boundary map with A and B times. Make A's one color and B's the other color.
How we're doing our elementaries, is that really the most effective way to do it? That might need to be what needs to be started.
Any other questions, discussion?
Just to throw something out there, say it costs $2 million more a year, which I think that was the higher end of some of the options. What's our general fund budget? $200 million?
I'm gonna duck.
We're talking 1%. I know it's $1 million. That's a lot of money. If we did our $2 million, you have a $200 million budget. So as a percent, we're talking 1%. And the research really just keep studying the research. It'll drive you.
But we would have to purchase some buses as well, right?
I'd also like to point out the fact that I know that y'all have talked to ILC and to some principals, but the community, there's a couple of scenarios where there were some assumptions made by those 2 groups, and rearranging parent schedules and things of that nature, and kids getting home. But kids getting home in the afternoon, at some point the elementary school kids are going to be home by themselves, and somehow if that becomes an option, I'd feel safer with my high school kid walking my child at the time of year when it's still dark out, and my child in elementary coming home during the daylight. And that's one of the things that we assume on here. I just think that we make assumptions for our community. I think a lot of times we as a district present things in such a way that parents and our community says, oh, okay. But if you look at it from a different perspective, if you show them the research, I think, I don't mean to take any of your information away, Mr. Pavi, but it's not just academics. It's safety. And the line you read to us out there on academics. Those are the things that we're about. And you know, I sat on this board when we talked about stopping and not picking up kids that were 2 miles away and elementary school kids. We have to be about bettering our educational process. And I know what you're constrained by because of economics, but we have to be about more than that. I would like to see a couple of more options where you put high school last and junior high right behind it.
I agree with you regarding it. You know, I just know that principals are just coming out of a deficit budget where their operation budget was cut 10%, and we shaved some teaching units off of it too. So their fear is if we spend $5 million on this new schedule, is that going to cut into their potential staffing needs? So that was why I think some of the negative comments were on that side of the fence. It's just their skepticism that we can afford it and not harm instructional side of things. So
I'd like to see some official visits to some of the districts. It doesn't have to be the one I work at during the day, of districts that have late start times. And principals that have been through it when they were there early and then they moved to the late. I know you have a principal that went through it, but I can tell you that the feedback from my assistant superintendent at the place I work at, who was the principal before and after, was light years and 100% different than the feedback you got from your principal. It changed the environment of that campus for the better. So I'd like to see you do an official visit if possible.
But when we have to visit some district that has comparable high schools and elementaries instead of, you know.
At this stage, you just need to go see a district that has a late start high school.
Well, that's true.
It could be a 1A, it could be a 5A. I mean, 5A is preferable.
But I'm just saying, if you got 3 high schools and late start, which is fine, I agree with the late start on the high school, but with as many elementaries that we have, you know.
You can find one that has similar demographics.
Yeah, well, I'm saying,
especially low socioeconomic. That's going to be a
yeah.
issue. Don't go to Highland Park if they have a late start. That might not. You may have some issues that they don't have there, and not even vice versa. Just we may have issues they don't. But
anything else? Okay. Thank you, Dr. Duarte, Mr. Walshott, for your time. We look forward to seeing you guys again.
Thank you.
Moving on now to action item number 7, we have consideration of consent agenda.
we have consent agenda item A1, resolution regarding Lee College's consideration of Senate Bill 11, Section 411.2031, subsection D1, for campus safety. Number 2, Goose Creek CISD Board Goals 2017-18. Number 3, donation from Ralph and PC Christensen. Number 4, change order number 1 is submitted by and to amend the contract with Comex Corporation to perform the construction of the Robert E. Lee High School window replacement project. Number 5, joint election agreement with Lee College. Number 6, budget amendment.
Is there anybody interested in pulling any of these 6 from the consent agenda?
I'd like to move for approval, consent agenda.
I'll second that motion.
A motion from Mr. Laredo and a second from Ms. Coffey to approve consent agenda as proposed.
Can I ask a question?
Any discussion?
On the replacement of windows, I know it's a change of contract. Is that plus or minus?
We're receiving money back.
I thought I was reading that. I just wanted to make sure.
$500,000.
Yeah.
Very nice.
Any other questions or discussion? All in favor, please raise your right hand. That motion carries 6 in the affirmative.
7.
7 in the affirmative. I keep always forgetting to count my own hand. I'm sorry. Okay. All right, moving on to future board agenda items, board training, and board meetings. Well, let's discuss future board agenda items at this time. Have the continuation of the discussion of the start times. Anybody else with future agenda items that you would like to have us research or see?
At the end of this semester, well, this school year, do we get a cumulative of like each demographic on how reading, math, whatever, overall, like we did once before, for us, where when we talk about improvements, looking at
You're looking for
Paper report.
a paper report on the individual subjects that our students score in?
Scoring,
that
yeah.
are report card grades? How many students make A's, B's?
No,
Okay,
just the percentages of, like, if the, say if African American student in reading scored 60 whatever last year, what did they do this year?
So in other words, a report on the growth of a student from one year to
Right.
the next based on STAR results?
Star or whatever we,
Well, that's about the only thing we use for measuring writing skills, I
Right.
believe. Okay.
and the reading
Okay.
and skills, and just to look at where we have growth.
Okay.
Is that possible by the end of the year, or do we
Well,
have
the
to wait?
question is, Mr. Poppy is whispering, and I wish you'd speak up a little bit, sir. Is not, Dr. Duarte, is that not what the taper report gives us?
And we did send
No.
out a board update, that I put a PowerPoint slide together that showed by race and ethnicity and the comparison to the state. So I can send that again if you
Yeah,
would like.
please, my computer's been kind of like,
That would be for the most recent year, though. I think what Mr. Sampson is asking for is to take all that data from the 2015 year that we just got and compare it to the 2014 year to see if we've done it. Okay. Okay.
I can get that back out
Good.
to you.
And I think he's asking for when we get the results back from the 16-17 testing, that we do it again. Okay, all right. I'm jot that down as a report for the future.
right, this
Okay.
report.
I have a couple that are on upcoming, requested for upcoming meetings, and that's to consider rezoning and efforts to have balanced loads at each of our campuses. And that's coming up, I believe, in February. And then we also have coming up a board report, actually it'll be a public report from the Education Foundation that I'd like to present in the month of February as well.
Okay. Would those be reports or action item?
So,
Because when you say report, we usually just listen.
report. I haven't received the information
Okay.
from the Education Foundation as of yet to
Okay.
be able to answer that.
At this point, I'm writing down reports then. And you and I can discuss if it's
Yes,
going to be an action item at a later time, okay?
Yes, sir.
Anything else? Okay, board trainings. Upcoming possibilities, we have the Winter Leadership Conference in San Antonio we've been invited to.
Yes, sir.
We have the National Association. Hopefully everyone has talked to Ms. Garcia about your intentions for either of those two conferences. Okay. I know she continually reminds us, and then we have the Gulf Coast meeting is coming up, I believe, a week from this Wednesday.
February 8th.
Okay.
February 8th.
So that's 2 weeks from tomorrow. 2 weeks from tomorrow. And I noticed in our report Friday, I'm the only one who has said they're going at this point. So
Is that a Region 4?
it's at Region 4, yes. Okay. All right. Any ideas on future board meetings? I think we've made some changes 2 weeks ago, and I think we're set for a while, unless anyone has any other to discuss. Okay. Okay. Mr. O'Brien, do we need to go, do we have personnel tonight?
One teacher recommendation.
Well, okay.
You've been presented previously.
Okay. The only recommendation tonight is a teacher. Is there anybody who feels the need to go into closed session to discuss the personnel actions? Or if anyone has anything else to discuss in closed session, I'll be happy to take it back there.
Coffee back there.
I can get that after.
I need a motion.
Move for approval.
No, move not to go into closed session.
Oh, I move that we don't go to closed session.
I have a motion from Ms. Cockrell, second.
I didn't make the move. But okay, I'll second.
Okay, that was the motion to not to go into closed session.
Yeah, it's fine.
I'll give you that, okay? And I'll give you the second, okay?
Take it.
All right. Motion from Mr. Laredo, second from Ms. Cockrell, not to have closed session tonight. Any discussion? All in favor? Raise your hand. Okay, that passes 7-0. So now moving on into, we'll jump all the way to E, consideration of personnel. Mr. O'Brien.
We have one election recommended this evening, Leslie Stevenson Henson, teacher assigned to Asheville Smith Elementary School.
Move for approval.
I second.
Motion from Ms. Cockrell, a second from Ms.
I made the motion.
No motion, I second.
Okay, I heard two female voices. Motion from Ms. Coffey, second from Ms. Cockrell to approve the appointment. I'm sorry, I don't have her name in front of me. Of
Leslie Stevenson
Hanson?
Henson.
Of Leslie Stevenson Henson as a teacher at Asheville Smith. Any discussion? All in favor, please raise your right hand. Motion carries 7 in the affirmative. I have no other business on the agenda.
I move that we adjourn.
Motion from Ms. Coffey to adjourn, second from Mr. Poppy. Any discussion?
I just want to, before we do close, I just want to wish Ms. Garcia a happy birthday.
Yes.
Happy birthday, Ms. Garcia.
Augustine, you're going to sing for her, weren't you?
The mariachi's left.
Oh,
All in favor of adjournment, raise your hand. 7-4. We are adjourned at 7:41.